My name is Chris Court. I'm the executive producer of Red Alert 3.
Hi, so I'm Mike Verdu. I'm the general manager of the EALA studio.
Red Alert 3 is fun, popcorn, Saturday matinee RTS with top-notch naval gameplay and a cooperative story-driven campaign. If you think about how the two games relate, CNC3 versus Red Alert 3, or more broadly, the Tiberium universe and the Red Alert universe, they're pretty different. I mean, for us, the Tiberium universe is that dark, brooding, gritty sci-fi. Red Alert 3 is really the complete opposite of that. Continuity of the fiction is less important to us. Certainly in Red Alert 3, the entire fiction is kicked off by a time travel event, so we're in an alternate history. We believe that alternate history brings a lot to the table, and I think one area where that's true is when we consider sort of the technologies that feed into each of our factions. So, and we really do try and use kind of these real-world events and real-world people and experiments as kind of the genesis for things in the game, but kind of blown up in a weird way.
Red Alert, to me, is much more about, what if, and the playful possibilities of what if. What if all of those crazy experiments in the 50s and 60s had borne fruit and were put into actual military hardware? What if time travel was possible and the Soviet Union never fell? What would it be like in 2010 or 2015? But all in the spirit of a very over-the-top, wacky, playful world.
I mean, that's Red Alert for you. We're not going to do that in a Tiberium game. If you think about sort of the place of naval gameplay in RTS history, the RTS designers, they're keeping it at arm's length or ignoring it altogether, and you can kind of appreciate why. I mean, it's difficult to take sort of the slower paced, or what's often perceived to be slower paced naval mechanic and make that work in a game that's often about fast tanks.
Everybody agreed that we had to figure it out, and if we could figure it out, it would set this game apart in ways that no other combination of features really could. So base building on water, putting resources out there, amphibious units, it really makes makes water kind of what air turned out to be for RTS, which is a way to add depth of strategy and really change up the game experience a little bit.
And generally, as we think about strategy games, opening up new strategic dimensions is usually a pretty good idea. So with Red Alert 3, we're actually kind of rethinking that speed dynamic and trying to emphasize two things. Force composition, getting a good mixture of units, and then this idea of sort of micromanagement. Every unit has a secondary ability, so particularly for the more advanced players, if you can micro your units, you're going to be more effective. I really do believe that with this emphasis on force composition, being able to sort of scout out what your opponent is doing and making informed decisions about what you're building, and then having to take sort of a mixed set of forces up against them is very much in the vein of adding kind of a fluid dynamic to the tactics, where it's not so much about teching up to the best super weapon or your tier 3 units as much as it is first exploring and trying to get a sense of what your opponent is doing. There is certainly a dynamic here that is pushing you in kind of classic CNC fashion to tech up and to get at the super weapons. We actually don't want to back off of that. I think that's an exciting dynamic. And in Red Alert 3, we do want to slow down that kind of early game experience. We don't want to get rushing completely out of the game, but this idea of sort of lengthening some of the strategic aspects of it is pretty important to us. Red Alert 3 does have 3 factions, and this is the first time a Red Alert game has added that 3rd faction. And first of all, we don't, we didn't go into the development of Red Alert 3 with the assumption that 3 factions are better than 2. I mean, I think we're all aware that more is not necessarily better. But we wanted to do something dramatically different But at the same time, we felt like if we tried to do something dramatically different with the Allies and the Soviets, a lot of our fans who had some high expectations for what the Allies faction and the Soviets factions have always been might be disappointed. So we're still mixing up some things in the Allies and Soviets, but they feel familiar. And at that point, that was sort of our opportunity to say, okay, well, if we were to add a third faction, what could we add that would make that would allow us to kind of go a little bit more wild and crazy? And Japan was kind of an obvious choice.
There's some hints even in RA2 when you see the red phone on the desk that says Moscow. There's actually a red phone next to it that says Tokyo. The seeds were planted a while back, and it just felt right to go to the Empire of the Rising Sun, to Japan as our third faction.
It's got this incredibly rich cultural heritage that is sort of widely understood and accepted in popular culture, and you know, ninjas and samurais and mechs, and I mean, you really can't go wrong. So, you know, the Japanese are, you know, we think of the Japanese as kind of our opportunity to stretch a bit and maybe try a bunch of new things.
So Red Alert 3 is scheduled for release for holiday 2008 on PC and console. Can't wait for people to get their hands on this game. As I said about CNC3 Tiberium Wars, which was a labor of love for us, this is 2. If you have as much fun playing this game as we had making it, you'll have a blast.